Does making 6 swimsuits make you an expert of sorts? I'm asking for a friend. If so, then that qualifies me to share 5 tips for sewing swimwear with you guys today on the channel. So, if you have had your mind on making a swimsuit, but you feel a little bit hesitant, then you might want to keep on watching. Hey beloveds, your girl Kris here. Welcome if you're new, or welcome back to the channel if you are an OG. For today's video, I am going to be sharing with you guys 5 tips to keep in mind when making a swimsuit. Now you guys, I have made to date 6 swimsuits. 4 of them, no not 4, yes 4 of them were indie pattern swimsuits, and 2 of them were from a pattern from the Big 5, one of the new look patterns to be exact. Now, having that experience, I feel like I'm in a position now to share with you guys some tips. No, I in no way think I'm an expert. I feel like I have to have a couple other swimsuits under my belt first before I can really declare myself an expert. But I feel like having gone through the experience of constructing different swimsuits, I have picked up some thoughts along the way that I thought might be helpful to some of you. So let's jump right into it. Tip number 1. Cut out your swimsuit using a rotary mat and rotary cutter. Now, I know some of you guys prefer to use shears over a rotary cutter, and believe me when I say I know exactly what you mean. When I first started sewing, I used to only use shears. I bought a rotary cutter and I had a cutting mat because I like to use it on my table, but I just couldn't use it effectively. I later found out that the quality of the rotary cutter really makes a huge difference. And dare I say, the quality of the cutting mat as well. I have since bought an LDH rotary cutter and it has changed my life, you guys. Now, no matter what I'm cutting out, there is a 90% chance that I'm using my rotary cutter instead of my shears. So I have really come a long way. It is so much easier to control slippery fabrics when using a rotary cutter because when you're snipping through with your shears, the movement of the shears and your hands has a tendency to shift your material. And it means that your finished pattern piece might not be cut accurately. In addition to that, when you're cutting with shears, unless you have a really good hand, the likelihood is you're going to end up with a few jagged edges. This is vastly reduced by the use of a rotary cutter. Now, swimsuiting material is inherently quite slippery. And so, in my opinion, it is best to cut it out using a rotary cutter and shears. The second tip I want to share with you sort of follows on from tip number 1, and that is cut out your swimsuiting fabrics flat. And when I say flat, what I mean is not on the fold. Now, some swimsuiting patterns will tell you that certain pieces should be cut on the fold, but in my experience, folding swimsuiting fabric to establish a grain line is really difficult, and it just makes it harder to cut it out accurately. So what I have preferred to do is I print off 2 copies of my pattern and then I stick them together right down the center front or center back line so that I can have one whole swimsuiting piece. On the occasions where I have not cut out 2 copies of my pattern, I like to cut out one side first and then simply flip my piece over along the grain line to cut out the second side, and then I can end up with just one piece, whether it is the center front or the center back. This to me makes for an accurate cut, and it means that my sizing is likely to be more accurate once my swimsuit has been constructed. So remember, tip 2, cut your fabric out on the flat. Does it take a little bit more time? Yes, it does. Does it save you tons and tons of stress? Most definitely. Now, the third tip I want to share with you guys, and I probably should have shared it as like the first tip because it's really, really important. And that is to pay attention to the measurements. Now, I know as seamstresses, we're meant to be checking our measurements anyway, but I feel like those people who sew knit fabrics a lot sort of, I don't want to say ignore, but they don't put a lot of emphasis, in my view, on the measurements. You figure to yourself, all right, the fabric is going to stretch around my body anyway, so even if I'm a little bit off, it doesn't matter. No, I completely disagree. Even knit garments need to fit your body a certain way. And swimsuiting patterns, like any other pattern, cannot be designed to accommodate every single body type right out of the envelope. So it's important for us to choose our starting sizes that are most appropriate to our body measurements. Obviously, you want to take account of the negative ease and the stretch percentage of your fabric because that has a part to play in establishing how your swimsuit is going to fit you. Now, in addition to all of that, I am a huge proponent of making fitting adjustments, even when I'm sewing up patterns that are designed for knit fabrics. In my view, fitting adjustments are fitting adjustments, and they really, really need to be done. Now, in the event that you are not as savvy when it comes to making the different types of adjustments, or perhaps you're not that far along in your fitting journey and you're not quite sure what adjustments you need to make, I would definitely encourage everyone to check that the bust, the waist, and the hips fall in proportion to your own body. Now, aside from all the other fancy adjustments that you can do, a sloping shoulder adjustment, a sway back adjustment, and so on and so forth, in my view, at least take the time to make sure that your bust line fits where your bust is on your body, your waist, and your hips, because this can make a huge impact on how your finished swimsuit looks on you. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I tend to be even more self-conscious when I'm wearing a swimsuit. So much more of the flesh is on display. And whilst I want to promote body positivity, I still do feel a little bit uncomfortable when I'm wearing a swimsuit, even more so when it doesn't fit me correctly. Now, the last two swimsuits I made, in my opinion, fit me almost perfectly. And the way I was able to take my photographs, the confidence that I felt and that I feel comes through in those photographs is markedly different from when I wear a ready-to-wear swimsuit. I definitely felt so good in my me-made swimsuits, and that is because I had made fit adjustments to those swimsuits, and this last particular pattern, which happened to have been the Frankie swimsuit, really fit your girl quite nicely. Now, on the off chance that you want more information on the Frankie swimsuit, then be sure to go ahead and check out this video right here where I shared a full review on this pattern. Now, the fourth tip I wanted to share with you guys sort of carries on from tip number 3, and that is consider using an indie pattern for your first few swimsuits. Now, I have sewn up, as I said, New Look. Is it 6734? I'll go ahead and pop the envelope in. And I made this swimsuit pattern twice. The first time was almost a disaster. Now, it is wearable, but I don't like the fit at all. I did try to make some fit adjustments, but the elastic guide that came with that particular swimsuit absolutely sucked. The elastic pieces were way too long. And I was trying, as I was constructing the swimsuit, to make some changes on the fly, shortening my elastic, trying to get it to fit my body. And as I said, it is wearable, but it's not very good in all honesty. So I made a second iteration with shortened elastics, and I was just completely working off a whim. And the second iteration does fit me much better than does the first iteration. But you guys, I almost gave up once I finished the first one. I'm like, am I really going to do this again? But then I made a decision that I was not going to let this pattern defeat me. And so I tried it a second time. And thankfully, the second time was much better. However, you guys, I have since sewn up 2 patterns from Edgewater Avenue. The first one was the Athena swimsuit, and I really enjoyed the construction of that swimsuit, but I still wasn't completely satisfied about the fit of it. That one has a very deep U neckline in the front, And I just feel like my girls were easily slipped out of that swimsuit, and that made me feel kind of uncomfortable. But because I enjoyed the construction, I decided to try a second Edgewater pattern, the Frankie swimsuit, and as I have just told you, I absolutely love it. I found the instructions easier to follow. There is a video sew along as well for that particular pattern. I am a visual learner, and it was so much more helpful to me to see somebody else and hear her tips when she was constructing the swimsuit. So I would 10 recommend ditch the big five pattern company when it comes to making swimsuits and start out using an indie pattern. And my recommendation would be Edgewater Avenue. Now, the fifth and final tip I wanted to share with you guys is this: based, based, based. Now, if you have been sewing for as long as I have, this year is going to make 7 years, then you kind of become complacent. You become comfortable with sewing, and it makes you feel like you can skip some steps. And basting is one of those steps that sort of just gets tossed out of the window when you become a more experienced sewist. However, you guys, when it comes to making swimwear, in my view, basting your layers together saves you so much time. Now, in case you did not know, when you're basting, you're using the longest stitch available on your sewing machine. Now, in my case, I think the longest stitch on my machine is like a 6.0 millimeter. Now, when you baste your two layers together, it means that if any of your swimsuiting fabrics have slipped out of place while you're sewing it, you can easily unpick it and reposition it. That is not the case when you're using a zigzag stitch, a lightning bolt stitch, or you're using your serger. Those stitches, in my opinion, are a lot more challenging to unpick, especially the lightning bolt and the zigzag stitches. And so you will save yourself a lot of headache if you take the time to baste your swimsuit fabrics together before moving on to a more permanent stitch, and definitely before trying to attach your elastic. Ask me how I know. Take my word for it, you guys. Basting is key. Now, you guys, those were the 5 tips I wanted to share with you that will be lifesavers for you when constructing your first couple of swimsuits. I have learned by trial and error, and I just figured, why not help you save some time and some frustration? I wouldn't want you to get discouraged and be like, oh, I'm done with it, because it has proven quite difficult to construct and to fit. If you found these tips and tricks helpful, be sure to go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Drop me some comments down below and let me know, have you ever sewn a swimsuit? If you have, what did you think of the process? Did you use a big 5 pattern, or did you use an indie pattern? Would you be inclined to sew it up again? Let's continue the conversations in the comment section. Now, if you have gotten this far in the video and you're not yet subscribed, then please, please, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me to reach other people who might be interested in my sewing content. And the truth is, you guys, I just can't do this YouTube journey without you. Now, that is all I needed to share with you today. So until next time, stay calm, stay cool, stay safe, and absolutely keep sewing. Peace.